how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as Chinese?
I have so many different cultural parts of me. It's just not that simple. It took me like 20 something years to realize that no matter what, I'm not going to actually be able to be Chinese. And it's funny because I've never lived in the States.
How do people react to you? Like, do you have to explain how you learn Chinese every single day?
It's like you still get the welcome to China, or do you use chopsticks, or do you eat rice at home? I think for so long I wanted to fit in, and there were so many things that I didn't do growing up because I just wanted to be like everyone else.
Do people treat you very differently living in China because you aren't ethnically Chinese? But what about your story? Like, I mean, it seems like you have such an interesting mix of kind of cultures in your background. Where are you from? Where were you raised?
Okay, so this is the question that every time people ask me this question, like, do you want the long answer or the short answer?
I want the long answer. We got time.
Okay, so the long answer is that my dad is from Michigan, from the States, and then my mom is from a tiny town in Poland. And they met in Poland, and I ended up being born. My brother was born in Poland, but I was actually born in Russia. And then they moved to China when I was 4 years old because my dad is like working in the IELTS. I don't know if you know the IELTS test, but it's like this test to test your English level. And a lot of countries require it for work, for university, stuff like that. So my dad was an IELTS examiner, and that's why our whole family like moved to China in 1999. So that was like, so every time people ask me like, where are you from? It's kind of, I can't just say like, oh, I'm from the States, or I'm from Poland, or I can't even say that I'm from China, because even though culturally I do identify with a lot of Chinese things, and after being here for so long, it definitely has like made its mark on me, and on my identity. But I feel like I can't claim that because I don't have a green card and because I'm white. Like, yeah, it's like being here for 20 plus years. And I still feel sometimes that I have to like defend my relationship with China when people are like, no way, like no one has been here for 20 something years. But yeah, it's a complicated answer that I'm still exploring, like identity and all of that.
Well, it brings up the question on like how you can identify where someone is from. And it seems easy. Like you would just say, well, I'm from Canada. There you go. It's how hard can it be? But there are so many people that don't fit within that box, that kind of, well-organized box. It becomes more complicated
Right.
The more cultures you add into it. So the way that I've thought about it, and tell me your thoughts on this, is there's kind of like three ways you can determine someone's identity. You could say, okay, this is your blood. So like it's your lineage or whatever. My family is ethnically German or ethnically Chinese. You could say your passport, where you're legally a citizen of a country, or you could say the culture where you grew up in, like the culture that you had the most exposure to, and probably exposure on like kind of those pinnacle years when you're young and you're like very
Right.
impressionable, and it kind of shapes who you are culturally speaking. And I think personally that the culture one is the only one that really matters because it's the one that impacts you the most. But that's just my opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Like the culture plays a big part in it. And it's funny because I've never lived in the States. Like I've never lived in the States, but I did consume like Western media growing up. And I was like, on Tumblr and on YouTube and all that. So, but then I also consumed all of the Chinese media. But the funny thing is because those points that you got into, I actually wanted to do a video topic on this. What makes someone Asian? And I guess you could say what makes anyone, and I guess I meant Asian culturally. But of course, Asian is a race more than it is a culture. And then, yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, is it the language that you speak with your parents? Is it the language you speak with your kids? Is it the food that you eat? Is it the religion? Is it the religion that you follow? Is it the language that you read in, or the language that you dream in? And I like had a whole list of everything, like what makes you like identify with a culture. But at the end of the day, like I was talking with my Asian friends about this, and they're like, Alysa, you'll never be Asian. Like just because racially you're not Asian, you will just never be able to be Asian. And also I'm wondering how much of an identity can we identify with if we don't experience the same things that people who are from that race experience. Like we might identify with a certain culture, but we don't receive the racism, we don't receive the negative points that that culture has to endure. So does that mean that maybe we don't have access to identifying with this culture because you can't really just take the good without the bad, you know? So I don't know. What do you think about that? That's something that I've been thinking about.
I mean, that's a more nuanced definition than what I was providing. I mean, by saying if all that matters is culture, I am kind of stepping over some other important things, like you're saying, like how you appear to other people and how they might treat you based on that. And so I guess I'm looking at it through kind of an idealized version. Like I would like to think that no matter how you look in Canada, people would treat you the same. Is that a reality for everyone? Probably not. But it is normal for us to have people from other countries that have a different ethnic background, but were raised culturally Canadian. So like having someone who moved to Canada when they were 4 from China, so it'd be like almost the opposite of your story, would be totally normal. And that kid would grow up in Canada, would speak like a Canadian, would have all of the same cultural references that I would. And I, anyway, would treat them just as I would another Canadian. I think that in countries that are less diverse, it becomes more of a topic where it's like, hey, why is it that you speak like that, but you look different, you know? And then it's more of a topic. Like, do people treat you very differently living in China because you aren't ethnically Chinese?
Right. That is my experience. In the beginning, people would ask me like, where are you from? Where are you from? Or they wouldn't find out that I'm not Chinese unless they saw me. Like if I was on the phone, they would think that I'm Chinese. Or if I was wearing a hat, if I was wearing a mask, they wouldn't know that I'm not Chinese. But then once they see like, that I'm not Asian, then they would be like, wait, so where are you from? I'd be like, I immigrated. I'm an immigrant. Like I immigrated like back in the day. And they're like, wait, no, no. They're like, no, you didn't. They're like, where are you actually from? And so then I would, have to explain the whole thing. And I think for so long, I wanted to fit in, and there were so many things that I didn't do growing up, because I just wanted to be like everyone else. And growing up, I was like an overweight kid as well. So that was also something that was like, I was trying to like hide not be noticed. When it came to like personal style, I tried to dress more like, I didn't want to dress anything that would like make me stand out even more than I already do. So I would kind of wear things that were more like unisex or more like plain, just like not very colorful, not very bright. And that was like for most of my teenage years, and like just for like quite a while, I was just trying to fit in so much. And then when I dated my ex, I was with a Chinese guy for 5 years, and I think that I talked about this in therapy actually. Like my therapist was like, "Do you think because okay, well maybe I won't get into that, but with my ex, like I don't know how much of how much of me was like thinking that this would really help me to be a part of Chinese society. Like once I'm like in a relationship with a Chinese person, then of course I have to be accepted like 100% as Chinese. But it kind of actually made me feel the opposite. And it took me like 20 something years to realize that no matter what, I'm not going to actually be able to be Chinese. And I especially recall recently, last year, I was on a trip to Poland, where my mom is from, and I was in a tiny town like on the outskirts of Warsaw, and I was visiting my friend, and she is very involved in the church community there. We went to the parish cafe after mass, and people were just like treating me like a Polish person, even though I felt so detached from Polish culture. I can't even speak Polish, and I felt really bad that I don't speak Polish. And I was like, wait a second. When I'm in a tiny town in China speaking like fluent Mandarin with the locals, I still get that foreigner treatment. But here I can just like get away with it, and I can be accepted as one of them. And I'm like, I need to learn Polish. I need to learn Polish properly now. So yeah, I think as long as China is not an immigrant country and as long as it's like not as diverse, as long as it's a homogenous society, I think this is always going to be something that keeps happening. Like it's just people are just going to be seen as foreigners. Like you still get the welcome to China, or do you use chopsticks, or do you eat rice at home? Can you read Chinese? Like this kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, it just is what it is.
I mean, that's a tough reality though, because especially as a kid, I mean, everyone wants to fit in with their peers, right? We all have that desire to, a certain degree. And it can be a hard time in a kid's life when they're growing up and they're figuring out who they are as an individual. And then when you have that kind of overarching system that's also telling you, hey, because you look this way, you don't fit in, like that just compounds with something that probably most kids go through. And so it sounds like it would have been extra hard for you. That sounds very difficult.
Yeah, it was hard. When I was a kid, we did have friends. We did have Chinese friends. We met some really sweet people, but there were some people who you're not really sure what the relationship, like some people would be like, oh, can we be friends? I want to like improve my English and this kind of thing. Like you're not really sure what's their motives. Like, is it actually friendship or is there something that they want for you? But we were lucky that we did have a lot of really sweet Chinese friends. And even though we may be treated like like foreigners, but there's like never like negative treatment. Like we didn't experience what some other people might experience if they, I mean, people were still really kind. They were still really kind.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can be very kind to someone and still make them feel like an outsider.
Yes.
Right? Like
Yeah,
you don't have to be rude to someone to make them feel like they don't belong. And something that I'm always curious about, especially in environments that don't have a lot of diversity, is like, how does that affect how you see yourself? Like when society tells you, hey, you're not Chinese, you're never going to be Chinese, but you know that you grew up there and that you have a lot of cultural references and everything like that are Chinese. I mean, like, if you could imagine removing how anyone else might see you, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as Chinese?
I think that I see myself as like, and I've had this conversation with friends as well, like percentages. I think I'd be about 60% Chinese and then 20% American, then 20% Polish.
Okay.
Like a mix of everything. It's funny because when I first started dating my ex, and people would ask me like, how did you guys get, like, what did you, like, how do you guys get together? And one thing that I would say, like, that I noticed was that he just treated me like a Chinese girl. He didn't treat me like all the other, he didn't ask those other questions. We talked about like documentaries, we talked about like food and all that. And it was refreshing to be treated as just as a Chinese girl. But then later I realized that I'm not just a Chinese girl. Like I have so many different cultural parts of me. And it's just not that simple. And so I started to realize like, oh, okay, maybe I am more than just being Chinese, but maybe I'm not fully Chinese either. Yeah, it's super complicated. It's something that I'm always exploring, and I don't think I'll ever stop exploring the topic of identity.
Well, and something that's also interesting about that is that, I mean, you have a unique background because of where your parents are from. But their upbringings and childhoods would be very different than yours too, right? Like they also live in China, do they, your parents?
Yes.
But they moved as adults. They weren't raised there. And so like they're going to look at it completely different than you are. And so that's pretty interesting too, how all three of you would see it very differently. How was it for you growing up? Like what languages did you use at home and stuff like that? What was your home culture, I guess?
So growing up, because my dad did not speak Polish, we mostly spoke English at home. We never learned Polish. We spoke English at home, but then like as we grew older and like improved our Chinese, like my siblings and I, we could use Chinese together, but you just use English because it's your family language. And it's definitely been interesting growing older and then maybe like going back to Poland with my mom and seeing how like my mom has like lost touch with Polish language and Polish culture. And she came to China in like her late 20s, and then seeing how the way that she relates to her culture and her identity and how that has shifted as well. Because before I was so focused on me, I was like, oh, I like, how do I feel? But like I realized, oh, right, she has an interesting story regarding this as well.
Hmm. And did she ever live in the US? Your mom?
No,
No. So you
no, she
guys
didn't.
lived
Yeah.
in Russia when you were born, right? Is
Yes.
that where your parents met each other, or how did they meet?
They met in Poland, but then they moved to Russia. They were doing like work and education. They were also working with the Red Cross at the time. So that's how it ended up being. They were like living all over the place. And then moving to China at the time, their families were like, that's kind of crazy. Like, why are you doing it? But they were, my parents, especially my dad, was always like kind of crazy. And then he, he wanted the adventure. And back then it was so different from how it is now. um, my parents really loved China. My parents loved China, and like, my dad actually passed away about 7 years ago in China, like still doing what he loves, still working in the education in the ESL industry. And my mom, to this day, I'm like, you need to think about where you want to go, because if you can't retire in China, if you don't have a Chinese green card, like maybe it's time to go back to Poland. But she loves her life here. She loves everything we've been through. And yeah, it's complicated.
And your parents lived so long in China as well, right? Like, how long has your mom been there now in total?
Since 1999.
1999. Wow.
So
So
that's
that's
26 years.
26 years in a different country. Is that the country that she spent the most time in now? Or percentage wise?
Soon. I think, I think probably, yes.
Something that I find very interesting is that you've never lived in the US, but you have a perfect American accent in English.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, to me, you just sound like someone that could be Canadian as well or American. I think the accents are very similar. And so, I mean, totally native passing in that regard. And I know that your dad is from the US, but like a lot of kids here in Canada, for example, would grow up with parents from another country, and they would speak that language with their parents, but then they would speak, like English here. And their English is always stronger than whatever their heritage language is. No, well, not always, I shouldn't say that, but usually it's stronger. And sometimes you get this phenomenon where they can understand the language of their parents, but they respond in English. So then, they have really good listening comprehension, but they can't really speak it. But you have, maintained like perfect English. So how did that happen?
I think a big part of that is because, okay, yeah, so my home language was English, and then my schooling was in English too, up until I went to university. So I think that that's a big part of why. But even though I did have like my education all English up until university, I would still feel a little bit self-conscious of my English. Like, if I was speaking with adults and they were native English speakers, I would feel like, wow, the way that I speak is like so simple, and like I'm not using those fancy like vocabulary and stuff. And then after being with my ex for so long as well, then I was like only speaking Chinese because he didn't speak English. And then I was working, I was only speaking Chinese at work, and I was just like, everything around me was only in Chinese. And my mom used to like be like, "Why are you speaking Chinglish now? Like your grammar is all messed up." And I'm like, sorry. And now that I'm with an American, then he's like, he notices things that I say that is maybe like the way that I say it, or maybe the words that I use is just not very American. So
Okay.
yeah, it's interesting to see. I didn't realize how much I was Chinese until then.
But would you say that like growing up, you like grew up fully bilingual between Chinese and English?
I don't think so, actually. I don't think I grew up fully bilingual, because learning Chinese actually was something that I was very interested in, and I pursued it on my own. And I mean, we had like Chinese classes and stuff like that, but I don't think that I wouldn't say that it was super, super a big part of my life as a kid, because I was speaking, like if I went out to the store or if I went to the market, then I would speak Chinese. Or with like our Chinese teacher, we'd speak Chinese. Our Chinese friends, they mostly spoke English with us because they had already, been learning English for years. And also I think that, people wanted to practice their English. And so I wouldn't say it was fully bilingual, but I ended up learning a lot of Chinese. I learned how to read the majority of my Chinese from playing The Sims in Chinese.
Okay.
And then I was like, that was really helpful for learning how to read Chinese for me. And I had this little like pocket dictionary. It was like this electronic dictionary. And every time I would see like a new word that I was curious about, I would like look it up on that dictionary. You could like write it with a little pen. And that's how that's how I like fueled my own passion for learning Chinese aside from like the Chinese lessons.
But like, was there a moment in your life where you had to actively learn to speak Chinese? Like, was there a time that you can remember where you didn't speak it?
Maybe not. I feel like I was always pretty good at Chinese, and I liked learning Chinese. I wanted to know what was going on. I wanted to be involved in the conversations. And yeah, so I can't really remember that time.
And that was a process that took place when you were a kid. Like maybe Chinese wasn't your main language growing up, but you were always using it even as a kid.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's right. I mean, that sounds like it could be pretty bilingual. I mean, like,
okay.
You know, I don't know what the definition, I guess, of that would be, but like the younger you are when you learn a language, the better you speak it normally, right? And so there are probably things that you've acquired through speaking Chinese at a young age that an English speaker learning it as an adult wouldn't be able to acquire or wouldn't be able to imitate. Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah. I think that would be accurate because a lot of the ways that I learned Chinese it wasn't very systematic. It wasn't very structured. It was just because of like a lot of exposure. And so I think the reason, I think my Chinese, the way I speak Chinese now, it's very casual, very local. I wouldn't say it's extremely polished. Like the way that I speak Chinese is not the same as someone who like properly studied Chinese for like 8 years at Peking University or something like that. And they're using all the fancy lingo. Yeah, I would say that I speak it more in like a casual, local way. But I still wouldn't say that it's perfect because it's been more about communicating to me versus saying the fancy words and like.
Yeah, but you say that about your English as well. You said that you don't use like the fancy words in English, or at least you thought that.
Yeah, I'm just not good with languages.
But I don't know. I don't see that at all. It doesn't sound like your English is any different than anyone else's. So I don't know. I mean, I think you're just being humble.
Okay, well, thank you. I mean, it's cute when I post a video, like because my subscribers, they know that I speak Chinese and they know that I speak English, and it's cute when I post a video in English and then I get comments and they're like, "Oh, your English is so good," or they're like, "Oh, it's so nice to listen to your English," and I'm like, "Oh, thank you."
Now, like, people do have a reaction to people, especially like foreign-looking people, let's say, speaking languages that aren't typically studied. So like, let's say white people speaking Asian languages. And I know how people react to me when I speak Tagalog with them. They're always like very surprised. And it's very hard to have an interaction with someone that doesn't know me without it turning into like an explanation on how I learned the language, which is fine. I get that. You know, it's a new experience for them, but it's not a new experience for me, right? I have those conversations a lot. How is it for you you live in China now, right?
Yes.
How, like, every day you speak Chinese, how do people react to you? Like, do you have to explain how you learn Chinese every single day?
I did, but then like you, I wanted to avoid this like repetition. So then I would just tell them straight off. I'd be like, "Oh, I immigrated," and then I would maybe try to talk about something else.
Just change the topic.
Yeah, no. Most of the time, it happens when you're like in a. Sorry, there he is.
There he is.
He's being rude. Yeah. So most of the time, I would maybe change the topic, or maybe I would ask them some questions, or yeah, I would just tell them, yeah, we just immigrated super early back then. You know how Chinese people immigrate to the U.S. or to Canada? Yeah, it's the same thing. I would just try to go something like that. But now it's funny because these days I kind of even get the opposite sometimes, where they don't really know. They sometimes they think that I'm a minority. I'm like a Uyghur or something. Sometimes they think that I'm from a Uyghur, and then they just think, "Oh, are you from Xinjiang?" And they'd be like, "That would make sense why you look like that, but then speak Chinese like that." So the opposite happens to me these days, where I would speak Chinese like when I get in the Uber, or we call it Didi here. I speak Chinese when I get in the Uber, but then like maybe my boyfriend calls me, or I have a conversation on the phone in English, and then they're like, "Oh, your English is so good." And they're like, "How do you speak English like that?"
It's like the opposite.
That's funny. It's like the opposite these days sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that I also became selective of what I tell people if they ask me, like, no, where are you really from? Like, where are you really from? Then instead of saying, oh, I'm from the US, then I would say, oh, I'm from Poland. Because if I say I'm from the US, then there's going to be like a lot of stereotypes after that. And they're like, oh, Trump is doing this and this and that. And like, oh, gun violence. I mean, it's true. The gun violence is true. And like whatever Trump is doing is true as well. But like, I just don't want to talk about it. Like, sorry. Sure. So then I would say, I'm from Poland. And then they'd be like, oh, Poland. Okay. And then we can get on to talk about something else. Yeah. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's interesting.
This sort of thing.
Yeah. And like for me, it's like so different because I live in Canada. And so, and I have the whole time that I've been speaking Filipino. And so I can just speak English. I have no obligation to draw unnecessary attention if I don't want it. And so it's not a problem at all. It's an opportunity for me. But for someone like yourself that lives in an environment where you look different than other people every day, I mean, you don't get to choose that. I mean, that's just how it's going to be, right? And so for me, like sometimes it's, it can be a little bit much at times. Like I'm like, oh, I want to practice my Tagalog today. I want to order my coffee, but I know I can't do that without it turning into another reaction. I just like can't have a normal interaction with somebody. And sometimes they do treat me like if I'll go into a store and ask for something, once in a while, like 1 in 10 people will just respond in Tagalog. And then I'm just like, oh, they've accepted me. Like I don't like.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. And I also don't want people to think that I'm looking for attention.
Right.
Which is maybe weird because I make YouTube videos and stuff, but like, in my private life, let's say, I'm not really looking for attention. I'm looking to connect with people. And sometimes the novelty of how I look gets in the way of that because I want to talk about something else. I don't want to talk about, how I learned Tagalog and wow, it's interesting. Have you ever been there? Is your mom feel it? I don't want to do that. I just want to have the other conversation. And so, but of course, yeah, it doesn't compare to like what your life would be like. I mean, so it sounds like you've adapted kind of creative ways to work around it. So you don't have to have maybe the same conversation 50 times every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you mentioned, like now it reminds me like these days, actually, I think it happens less actually. Maybe it's because I'm just so involved in this society. Like I think with young people these days, especially in the big cities, and it's depending on who you're talking to, I totally relate to what you said about looking for connection instead of wanting to make it into a big deal. Like, oh, I'm special or something like that. But these days it's actually become more like I can talk to someone, have a conversation. And I was actually told a few times that the way that I talk or the way that I carry myself, it just seems very local. Like, but then the way my sister interacts with people, she'll be like, oh, excuse me, can I please, blah, blah, blah. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, please, please, please. And then this kind of cultural thing, like they can immediately tell she's a foreigner. But then I'm just a little bit more like low key. I'm not like, please, oh, thank you, thank you. Like, how American and like Canadians, they like to do a lot of like, thank you, and like, how's your day? And this kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas here, not so much. So I feel like adapting to that has also let me fly under the radar a little bit. And then later they might ask, by the way, are you Chinese or and then I'm like, no, I'll be like, well, technically I'm not Chinese, but yeah. And then we can move into the more interesting conversation. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Is your sister older or younger than you are?
She's younger.
She's younger. So she also grew up in China?
Yeah, she was actually born in China. Like her birth certificate is literally in Chinese. She was born in this city, in this very city. And that's so wild because a few years ago, she was having some visa issues and people were telling her, just marry a Chinese guy, then you can get a marriage visa. And it's like, she was literally born in China. She spent the past like 20 something years of her life in China. Her birth certificate is in Chinese. And you're telling her, yeah, just get a man, then you'll be worth something. It's like so sad.
Yeah, like she can't do it on her own. I mean, does that mean that China doesn't have the birthright citizenship? Like if you're born there, you get it?
I think that maybe they do. I'm not actually super sure, but my parents, they had just arrived in China at the time. Like my mom like literally gave birth like 1 or 2 months after arriving in China. So I don't think that they were like, oh, let's give her Chinese citizenship right away. So that's how it happened back then. But But yeah, China's green card is one of the hardest to get in the entire world. So that's why.
Because like here in Canada or in the US, if you're born in the country, you get citizenship automatically. It doesn't matter where your parents are from. But then there are other countries like the Philippines where if you don't have Filipino parents, then you can't get the citizenship in the same way. Like it's not automatic. You'd have to apply for it, and there's like a visa process and things like that, which as you're describing with your sister, I mean, it blows my mind that someone can be born and raised in a country and then they say, well, you're not actually from here though. It takes us back to the cultural identity thing. It's like, well, then where are they from? Like, because
where are they from?
Just because you have parents from a different country, that means that all of the upbringing you've had in China means nothing. Like, I don't understand that system at all.
Yeah. I don't know if things will change because the birth rate has been going way down these days. You know, the population is, there used to be a one-child policy in China, but now in the past few years, very quickly, they went from extending it to a 2-child policy to a 3-child policy. They made marriages much easier, much simpler. Like some of the documents you needed to get married to someone, they reduced some of those. So because of this, like they're really trying to get the population up and running, like increase the population because they're a bit concerned for the future. But I don't know if that will change anything in terms of like the immigration policies. But my friends who work in global policy or like in the councils, they're like, not really, I don't really see that happening anytime soon. So I've kind of accepted it at this point. Before I thought, at one point I would like to get the Chinese green card, but now I've kind of accepted that that probably won't happen, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, your experience is your experience, regardless of the paperwork, right?
Yeah. And I just wanted to add what we were talking about Chinese. What we were talking about being like recognized as a foreigner speaking Chinese versus just having the moments of connection. What's really interesting is that I noticed that if I go abroad and I meet Chinese people abroad, then I don't care like what they think, or I don't care if they're like noticing that I'm not Chinese speaking Chinese. I love connecting with them. I'm like, oh my gosh, my people. And then I have to like rush over to them and start like talking to them like, oh yeah, I'm from Guangzhou. And like, it was so funny because when I was traveling in Europe earlier last year, I kept finding myself in like Chinese communities and Chinese groups. I thought that I'd be connecting with locals, but I kept like finding myself drawn to the Chinese, and especially Chinese who have like lived abroad or have studied abroad. And they kind of have like, they don't find me speaking Chinese very strange or very unusual at all because they've had those experiences being like someone in a different country. And I really love connecting with those kinds of people. Or one time I was doing a work project and there was a group of students from the US who were like visiting, and then there was some Chinese staff, but they were people who had like lived abroad in Canada or in like Saudi Arabia, and they were back in China for work. And then I was connecting with the Chinese staff and not with the American students because I felt like they could get me. They have the Chinese side to them, and they also have like the international side to them. And yeah, I keep like finding myself like wanting to connect with these kinds of people. And I was talking with my siblings about this because I was like, I realized that if we leave China, we have nothing to show for our experiences there. Like if you're half Asian, if your partner is Asian, then you can kind of see, oh, okay, you've had some like connection to that side. But because we don't have anything and my brother was like, why would you want that? Like, why is that so important to you? And then my sister was like, it's kind of like signaling, like, like if you're, for example, if you're part of like the LGBTQ community or something, you want something to signal like, oh, I'm one of you, like connecting with those people. And then I was thinking about that. I was like, that's right. I do want something for signaling, but what would that be? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want to connect with people, and having that shared culture and language is like the fastest way to do that. I mean, it's almost a cliche at this point that people say, oh, you should learn the local language. It helps you connect with the people. But it's like, it's so true, right? The second you start speaking a language that you have in common with somebody else, that you just like have a mutual understanding, immediately. And that, so I totally get that you'd want to signal that to Chinese people to say, hey, I had the same kind of like experience that you did, or a very similar one, right? So then like for your American side, you said that would be about 20%, let's say 60% Chinese, 20% Polish, 20% American. What's the longest that you've been in the US at one time?
About 2 months.
2 months. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a long time though. Like, I mean, that's enough to like kind of, get immersed into the culture. Like, do you feel like you identify with American culture? Like, it was just from one of your parents, right? Like, what was your schooling American as well, or was it more international?
Well, I think that I do identify with the American side. Okay, so out of Chinese, Polish, and American, I think I identify with the American side more because I do have American and Polish citizenship, but I identify with the American side more because I speak English and I don't speak Polish. And I consumed a lot of like American media, movies, books, social media. And, my dad speaking English, my family speaking English at home, it was kind of like cultural, the main cultural, what we gained culturally instead of like Polish. And then another thing about the US that makes me identify with the US more is because like when you go to the US, it doesn't matter really like where your background is, who your parents are, everyone is American. Like it's such a melting pot. I think that's one thing that like the US, Canada, the UK does really well, is the diversity. I mean, with everything else going on right now, like who knows what's going to happen after this. But previously I'd be like, if I'd go to the States, I would just be considered American, no matter what else I've been through, no matter what other culture I have attached to me. So then I think that's why I identify more with the American side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's like maybe some more acceptance of international people, right? And people that have diverse cultural backgrounds. Yeah, because it is a normal thing, right? And it's more normal all the time. Like when my grandparents were growing up, I mean, Canada was not as diverse, and so they didn't really get that opportunity. Then when my parents grew up, it was a little bit more diverse. And now for me, I had a very diverse upbringing, and I'm really grateful for that, Like I feel like I've been able to learn about so many different cultures just remaining within Canada, like the Filipino culture, for example, which has completely changed my life. And so I do love that about Canada. I love the diversity that we have here. I spent a few months in Colombia. That's where my fiance is from. And it's different there because, it has a very unique and kind of special culture. But it also is like everyone is just Colombian. Like there isn't a lot of international diversity. And so for me, that was sometimes strange. Like they had diversity within the country, from one region to another, different dishes, different accents, different music. But everyone is just Colombian. And so for me, I was kind of like, oh, there's no like international food really, and people look at me like I'm from a different planet, they're just like, what? And that was a unique experience for me because like you're saying here in Canada, it's like, whoa, it's just not a thing. Like if you're from a different country,
Right.
It's just totally normal. So yeah, that sounds like that'd be a big difference in comparison to China. What are some other differences between the US and China, would you say?
Well, because I haven't lived in the US, like sometimes people want to know things like that. And I'm like, I'm not really sure what to tell you. But yeah, the diversity, the immigration policies, those are some big things. What else? Americans, from what I have experienced, from what I have had exposure to, Americans are very expressive. They're very expressive. They like to talk about their opinions. They like to talk about how they're feeling. They talk about they love to say like, I love you. And even if it's like people who they don't know very well, they're like, oh, I love you, man. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I find Americans to be, and also very confident, very expressive, very confident, and very emotional. Like they like to talk about their emotions and express their emotions. Whereas Chinese society and culture tends to be more, they don't want to stick out. They don't want to stick out from the crowd. They don't want to do anything that seems like kind of different or kind of odd. And they don't grow up having a lot of space to express their emotions and to talk about how they're feeling. And that is a lot to do with like the way that their parents were raised and the way that their parents raised them and the way that their parents like expressed emotions to each other. And I think a lot of it also has to do with the work culture, because the work culture is very intense. Also, studying is very intense. Many Chinese from a very early age, they have a lot of pressure. And that has started back when, because China has one of the biggest populations in the world. So it was always a very competitive society. And so because it's a very competitive society, like once kids were born, they have to get into good schools. And then once they get into good schools, they need to have like their after school classes to like get better than everyone else, maintain like the best grades. And once they get, compete to get into university, they have to pass the Gaokao, which is like one of the most stressful exams in their whole lives. Like it's like the most stressful thing that they will do. And once they get into a good university, then they have to compete for a good job, compete for a good partner. So it's just a very stressful and intense society. Although things have been changing in the past few years, and like after COVID, the way that people view work and the way they view this kind of hustle culture has started to shift. But I would say that they don't tend to be as expressive as American culture, and it takes more time to get underneath the surface and get someone to open up. I think the way that they would express their affection or their feelings is more subtle, and maybe they would, like for example, they say that your mom wouldn't tell you that she loves you, but she will like cut you some fruit and give you some fruit, like that kind of thing. Like that's kind of how they say that their parents express their love.
Mm-hmm. Like through actions instead of through words, basically.
Yes.
Something that I wanted to ask you about, I live in Vancouver, and Vancouver has a huge Chinese population, right? And so, a lot of my friends and people I hang out with are Chinese. And I do experience Chinese people as definitely being more reserved than Canadians, like what you're talking about. But I also kind of experience them as being a bit more direct as well, like a bit more to the point. And so like, do you think that's a Chinese thing, or is that like, would you say that's like a general Chinese trait to be a little bit more direct with people and honest maybe?
I don't know if that could be a cultural, like maybe it's a translation thing. Like maybe if they're speaking to you are you talking about like Canadian Chinese or like Chinese Chinese?
Like Chinese.
Okay. I'm not sure if that's maybe like lost in translation kind of thing. Like maybe I think if they were speaking Chinese, they might word things a little bit differently. I don't find them to be too direct, but also because I have lived my whole life here, like maybe I'm just used to it. Like there are a lot of things that maybe to me is just normal, but to others it's not. Like I don't know how much of these kinds of mannerisms or ways of speaking I've picked up, and some of them are good, some of them maybe not so good. Like maybe I might be too direct and offend someone. It's hard to tell unless you have like a mirror or someone to point those things out to you. Like, oh, you're really direct. So I'm not sure.
Fair though, because like I have very limited experience. Like I've only been in Vancouver just under 2 years now, and so and that's where most of my exposure to Chinese culture has come from, is just from living here. And so I don't know. I wouldn't defend that claim. It was just a kind of a thought that I had. I think you're right that when you speak a different language, like a second language, you always have to be a little bit more direct. And I've noticed that in myself as well. Like you might not necessarily have the words to express yourself the way that you want to, and to be kind of fluffy and, I was just wondering if perhaps I could ask you if you would mind doing this thing. Like I don't have the words for that in other languages. So sometimes I'm just like, do that thing for me. Like,
right.
Yeah, you got to be a little bit more direct. So that's a good point. Yeah, maybe it's not a Chinese thing. Maybe it's a ESL thing, or a second language thing in general. Yeah. What part of China do you live in, by the way?
I'm in Guangzhou, and Guangzhou is it's near Hong Kong. It's like in the south. So it's one of the top, I think now there's like 4 first tier cities, but like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, these are like the top most developed cities.
But the Chinese that you speak is Mandarin?
Yes, that's right. Guangzhou is actually, they speak Cantonese, like it's Canton, like that's what it used to be called. But the thing about Guangzhou is that because it's a first tier city, you have people from all over China who have come here to, make a better life for themselves, make money. And so that's why growing up, like my exposure was more Mandarin than it was Cantonese, actually.
Okay. So like, would a higher percentage of people in Guangzhou, in the city, speak Mandarin than Cantonese?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
And the schools, they actually started to like crack down on the kindergartens, on the schools, and they were like, no speaking Cantonese. Like the kids need to learn Mandarin. And so the pressure to learn Cantonese falls to those kids' parents. And when your kid is going to school, learning a language and speaking a language with their classmates and everything, and then it's only up to you to be bringing in the Cantonese, some parents just give up, and then they just speak Mandarin with their kids. And then I will hear a parent speaking Mandarin with their kid, and then like you can tell that they're not very comfortable with Mandarin. They would much rather be speaking Cantonese, but they kind of feel like they have to because their kid is just only speaking Mandarin those days.
Interesting. Yeah, that was the impression that I had of Guangzhou, is that it's Cantonese. I always heard it in that
Yes.
in that context where it's like different regions of China have different languages, and this region was Cantonese. And so that was the idea that I had. And then I talked to someone here who has family from there, and they said, "Oh yeah, but my family doesn't speak Cantonese. They speak a different language altogether." And how like every region of China is like very like multilingual. So like there are other languages there as well, right? That they speak in that region.
In Guangzhou itself, yeah, it is the home of Cantonese. But if they have family who like immigrated from somewhere else, like one of my best friends, she considers herself Cantonese and she does speak Cantonese, but her parents actually came from Sichuan, and in Sichuan they speak Sichuanese. So she can speak Sichuanese, she can speak Cantonese, and she can speak Mandarin as well. So yeah, there's a lot of different people who have like immigrated here from other parts of China, because yeah, China is like so diverse in terms of their different minorities and their different languages and dialects. And yeah, there's a lot of different languages all over China.
And are they mostly different languages, or are they mostly different dialects, would you say?
Yeah, I would say the appropriate term would be dialect. Yeah, but it sounds completely different.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but like with Chinese dialects, the unifying factor is the written version, right? Like where the characters would be the same, but would be pronounced differently. Is that the way it works?
Well, yes, I guess you could say.
Like
yes,
would the written languages be different between one dialect and another, I guess?
Well, yeah, it would be different. Like, I think it would be different to me, but that's just my interpretation of it, because, like Cantonese, if you're looking at Cantonese and the way that it's written, it's just so, like, if you don't already speak Cantonese, you won't be able to read what they're talking about, because the characters are familiar, but their meaning and the way that they are, and the characters that are used are just so different from how you speak Mandarin.
I see.
So
okay.
I would say that although they're using the same characters, they might have a slightly different pronunciation. Not pronunciation, just completely different. Like for example, one character in Cantonese, in Cantonese it would be hey, but then in Mandarin it would be like si. It's just so different. It's so different.
And it has a different meaning as well.
Yes, it has different meaning as well. So I find it very confusing. I tried to learn Cantonese multiple times because I feel like not speaking Cantonese makes me locked out of a big part of the culture and a very valuable part of the culture. But I've tried so many times and I couldn't do it. I'm not good with languages.
I mean, people say that Chinese is a hard language. I mean, like Chinese obviously is not specific. There are, like we're talking about, lots of languages and dialects that would fall under the banner of like quote unquote Chinese. But I think that people are thinking of Mandarin oftentimes when they say that. And like, oh, Mandarin's a difficult language, has the tones, the characters. But Cantonese has even more tones than Mandarin does, right? So like, in terms of objective difficulty, especially from the English speaking perspective, I feel like Cantonese would be super difficult.
It's so difficult. It's really difficult.
Yeah, because there's like, 2 extra tones, or I can't remember.
There's 9 tones, 9 tones in Cantonese. And then in Mandarin, there's only 4.
Okay, four, and then isn't there also the flat tone? Would that be a fifth?
It's included in the four.
It's included in the four. Okay, so there's five
Yeah.
more unique tones in Cantonese than in Mandarin.
Right.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that sounds pretty complicated. I honestly would love to learn Mandarin. It would be such a useful language here in Vancouver, but I don't know. It's a little bit intimidating. I took like one Mandarin class in university and I learned like some basic words, but it was more challenging than I was expecting it to be. And I think it kind of, I don't know. Now when I think about it, I'm like...
Discouraged you?
Yeah, it kind of discouraged me a little bit. Because it was also like super intense, you know? It was like drinking water out of a fire hose, you know? Like where the teacher would just like rapid fire, like teach us words and then immediately test us on the words like the next day. And so she would walk around the classroom and she would say like individual words in Mandarin and we had to write them down as the character. And I mean, it's so hard because you can't fake it. Like there's no guessing. There's no like, oh, this one's pretty close. Let me sound it out. Like you either know the character or you don't know the character. And so she would say 10 words and I would look at my paper that had 5 written down and I'd feel so discouraged because it was so obvious where I missed the words that I, you know, maybe should have known. And so I found it challenging in a few different ways, I think.
It sounds like a good, like for me, that would be a good way to learn though, like testing you on what you know instead of like listen and repeat and follow what the whole class is doing. Instead, you know so clearly for yourself what you're missing.
Yeah, that's true.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was clear what I needed to study, I suppose. But I think that the part that was discouraging for me was how much I missed on things. Like, and we had like listening exercises. And I remember that I memorized lines to get through, not listening, sorry, they were like conversational exercises. So it would be like a one-on-one test with the teacher. We'd sit across from each other and then she would just like ask you basic questions about your family and stuff. And instead of learning the things that my family actually did, I just memorized like phrases. And she was like, what does your mom do? And I'm like, my mom's an English teacher. My mom is not an English teacher, but I just said that. And then she's like, what does your dad do? And I was like, my dad is a Chinese teacher, which he also is not. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yep. And because those were the things that I knew how to say. And so I was probably kind of a lazy student as well. And especially in comparison to like the Chinese work ethic, I was definitely a lazy student. One other thing I wanted to ask you about is the difference between like apps in China and apps in the West, because you've had experience with both of them, right?
Right.
So like, what is the biggest difference? Like in the West, we talk so much about like the Chinese apps and how they're different and they're this, and usually there's a negative connotation to that. But no one really knows. Like no one here has any familiarity with apps in China. So like you could shed some light on that, I feel like.
Well, when it comes to the social media apps, I would say that they are basically the same. Like they basically, yeah, there's not really any differences there. Oh, but something that I find really, okay, I'm going to mention 2 different parts. First, I'm going to talk about what I find interesting about their version of YouTube compared to our version of YouTube. So Chinese YouTube is Bilibili. And on Bilibili, one thing that I find really interesting and different compared to YouTube is that when you're watching a video, regardless if it's a TV show, if it's someone's vlog or something, you will see these, they call them danmu. It's like bullet comments. You will see these bullet comments coming across the screen of people commenting on what's happening right then. So like maybe like this is the video right now and you can see all of this like ha 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 ha, or why did she say that? Or that's so weird. Or like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Like you will see all of these comments coming across the screen. And I haven't seen that on other Western platforms where you can see like the live commentary of the people watching. So they have that on Bilibili, which is their version of YouTube. And they have that on like the, like where I like to watch a lot of shows, the app that I watch for, watching TV shows, you have that as well. So you can turn it on, you can turn it off, you can leave comments. And when you watch it, if you turn it on, you feel like you're not watching it alone. It's like you're watching it alone, but you're also not watching alone because you can see what everyone else is thinking and saying at the same time. Because
it's not a live stream. It's like they're showing the chronological order of comments that went as they came up after the video was uploaded. So like if the video was uploaded a year ago and there was 3 comments, and they would show you those comments 1, 2, 3 in chronological order as they came into the video, right? As they were commented.
Yes, it's kind of different from the comments itself. There's like the bullet comments, and then there's the regular comments. So the bullet comments is like you can leave a bullet comment at that specific second of the video, and then it will come across the screen while you're watching the video, and then it will leave. And so you will see like a lot at once, like this.
Okay.
And you can see what everyone, which is so interesting to me because like maybe I'm watching some like American TV shows and I can see exactly what the Chinese friends are thinking when they're watching. Like you're watching Love Island and you see what they think about like it on the screen. It's really funny. So that's one thing that I find to be quite different. And then the second thing that is quite different is for Chinese apps versus Western apps. They make their apps so all-inclusive. Like you can do everything in one app. I watched a really interesting video by a YouTube video by this Chinese girl who was discussing how Chinese apps are so full of information because it makes Chinese people feel more safe. Like when they have more information, they feel like they know everything and they have all the best tools at hand to proceed with making the best decisions. And you will see that in a lot of Chinese apps. Like you open it, it's just so much is going on the screen all at once. But because of that, it means that their apps are so all-inclusive. You can do everything in one single app. Like I could open WeChat. Do you know WeChat?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so I could open WeChat, and within WeChat, I can like top up my phone bill. I can buy movie tickets. I can order a bubble tea. I can, text my friends. I can voice my friends. I can Venmo my friends. I don't know why none of the, like WhatsApp doesn't have that. Like you can't like send, like you can't Venmo them. You can do everything. You can video call them in the app. You can send them your location. You can scan the QR codes. You can scan a bike and rent a public bike. You can send packages on the app. Like you can make a reservation in the app. You can do everything inside the app imaginable. You can book hotels. You can book flights. You don't have to leave the app once. Whereas for Western apps, you need several different apps to access all those things. Like even FaceTime and iMessage are like different apps.
Yeah. Yeah, we are like super focused on like having separate apps because I guess they're all individual companies. So like they all have their own kind of thing going on where it's like this company, gets paid if you do this and this company gets paid if you do that. Because like WeChat is not redirecting you to another app. It's in the app itself, right?
It's in the app itself. Yeah.
So does that mean that there isn't like a lot of private app development? Like if I moved to China and said, I want to create my own app about, doing this or doing that, would it not be as popular because WeChat would be like the giant that you'd have to compete with?
Yeah, it depends on what your app is doing because you would have to compete with WeChat. The thing about WeChat is that because yes, it doesn't direct you to like a different app, but they have a whole mini app system inside the app. So you can search up different mini apps within the app. And the mini apps are different services which are also available within WeChat.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's almost like an operating system. It's like iOS or something.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah.
Where you like zoom out a little bit and it's not just the apps, it's like the actual system that the apps run on. It almost sounds like it's like on the edge of being that because it's so all encompassing.
Yeah. That is like the number one app that anyone has to have when they're coming to China. They have to have that one.
I mean, that sounds super useful, honestly, especially for a country that has such a huge population. Like having one way to send people money, like Venmo people, sounds great. I mean, that would probably make your life really easy. Because like in the US, there's multiple ways to send money, right? You can do like, like Cash App, or you can do like Venmo, you can do, I don't know. I'm not really super familiar with the American ones, but like in Canada, we don't have Venmo. And we don't even use apps really to send each other money. We just use like they're like e-transfers, like through your email. And so in comparison to like the WeChat, it's probably like super antiquated and old, but like we literally just go through our online banking and send like an Interact e-transfer.
Oh,
so
wow.
You would like save someone as a payee, and then you would like have their email and their phone number, and then it would go through your email or your phone number and send to them. They would have like a password on their end that they would type in.
Oh, wow.
And that's how most Canadians send money to each other. There are other apps, but like for all intensive purposes, there might as well not be because nobody uses them. And so, yeah, I think we're probably behind. And people that go to China from the West talk about that all the time, how it's like technologically so much more advanced than we are in a lot of ways.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing that you can do in WeChat that is such a Chinese thing. So living in Vancouver, do you know the Chinese red packets?
Yes, yes. Hmm.
Yes. So they give red packets through WeChat as well. And
Really?
what's so funny is that in the app, so I could send someone a red packet personally. I can choose the cover of the red packet. I can make it like a silly photo of myself or a silly photo of
Okay.
something else. I can choose the title of the red packet. I can choose the amount in the red packet, but it has to be like 200 RMB or less. So that would be like, I don't know, like 50 Canadian
Okay.
dollars,
Yeah,
something
so
like
it's a
that.
small amount.
Yeah. And like around Chinese New Year or something, then in the group chats, you can send a red packet for everyone in the group chat. And you can choose the, like how many people can receive the red packet. Will it be an equal number for everyone or randomized amount? Like some people get a lot, some people get less. And so it's kind of like a whole thing. Like at Chinese New Year, everyone's in their group chats and they're like trying to grab the group hongbao. And they're like, thank you, Laoban. Like Laoban is like boss. And they're like, thank you, boss. Thank you, boss. Or they're like, collecting all of the hongbao. Yeah,
'Cause
that's what it's called, the red packet.
the red envelopes are like ways of giving people money gifts around like holidays and celebrations and stuff, right? That's like the
Yes,
basic
yes,
idea.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
That's cool. It's like, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It's WeChat. It's Chinese. That's a big part of Chinese culture. Yeah, put it in
It
there.
is.
Gamify it. Yeah. Okay, sweet. Alysa, thank you so much for doing this. This has been a really fun conversation for me. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun as well. And yeah, thank you for organizing it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Before we wrap up, though, tell people how they can find you online and watch your videos.
Oh, okay. So I'm on YouTube at Alysa in Wonderland, or you just search Alysa Wonderland and you should be able to find me. And on there, I share a lot about culture, identity, growing up in China stories. You can also check me out on Instagram at the same username, Alysa Wonderland.
Awesome. Do you have like duplicate accounts for the Chinese versions?
Oh yes,
Yes.
I'm on all the Chinese social media as well. So on
Nice.
Chinese social media, my username would be 我是骑士文, and that's maybe I should like send you the text for that because that might be a bit hard to find.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to type the subtitles for that, but okay, sweet. Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay, thank you. Have a great night.
Yes, you too. Okay, bye.